Hi everyone, it's Sherry Chaney Jones, President and Founder of MeasurementResourcesCO.com and author of the award-winning book, Impact and Excellence, Data-Driven Strategies to Align Mission, Culture, and Performance in Nonprofit and Government Organizations. I am so excited and grateful that you are here today and that you've taken the time out of your day to advance your leadership so you can take your organization to the next level. So as you know, I've been sharing with you and training with you on the skills and strategies and secrets that high-performance social sector leaders know and that are implementing to take their organization to the next level. And these strategies and skills help them attract all the resources and support they need to really make a greater impact in this world and change more lives and change more circumstances. And so what I've learned through my research and experience is that high achieving social sector leaders have been able to master their ability to pioneer, to partner, to plan, to pivot, to prove, and most importantly, to persist. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 10 essentials for any high-achieving social sector leader. You may have been following along and thinking, this is all great in theory, but what does it look like in the real world? How does this show up in a real-world social sector leader who's doing this day in and day out? So I'm going to share with you my friend Lori's story. So Lori is a friend and a client, and through all of the people that I've worked with, she is one of the most highest-achieving social sector leaders I've met, and she has definitely figured out how to master these 6 skills. So Lori is the executive director of a youth-serving mental health organization out in California, and she definitely knows how to pioneer. She is a wonderful visionary leader and has learned how to craft her message and take it to people so they understand it. So Lori's passion and mission is to improve access and quality of mental health services for children, and she believes that every child deserves to get to happy. So that's kind of what she's done, is she's used that phrase, getting to happy, to help people get on board with her mission. Who would not agree that all children have a place and they deserve to get to happy? So that's one way that she's helped pioneer this vision and use that phrase to help people get on board with her. And Lori also understands the importance of partnering, and she is excellent at partnering and thinking about partnering and valuing partnering, so much so that they have her whole model, her best practice model is built on collaboration, and not only collaboration with external partners, that's definitely huge, but also internally within her organization, high collaborations. And a lot of organizations say that they collaborate, but Lori has gone so far to document specifically how her organization collaborates differently. So that's an example how in the real world, a high achieving leader is valuing collaboration and using collaboration to achieve their mission. So the next important skill for every social sector leader is plan. And now this is interesting because Lori definitely understands the value of planning. However, as a visionary leader, as someone who has a great big ideas and really wants to move the needle and help all those kids get to happy, planning might not always be the first thing that she thinks about. So that's where she's decided she understands the importance, but she knows it might not be her strongest skill. She engages in help. She works with Measurement Resources to help her devise a plan that's going to help her scale her services, to communicate her services in a greater way so she can get her mission to the next level. And the other facet that Lori does really well is she knows how to pivot. Now, she definitely gets that she works in a really changing environment with government grants and politics and other things that are going on. And so she asked herself, what has already happened that's going to create her future? And she knows that if she wants to take it to the next level, she can't rely just on government grants like her organization had done for so long. She knew that she had to figure out how other ways that she could get funded so she could take that leap and go to the next level. So Lori has been investing in strategies in social media and grant writing and other things that haven't been traditionally part of her process and her business model. She's also looking at different ways to engage schools, because in California there was a policy change where schools were encouraged to provide mental health services. And Lori and her team know that when mental health professionals are involved in those services, they deliver better outcomes for kids. So Lori's been thinking about the strategies and the plans that she needs to partner with those schools and collaborate with those schools to take her message out there in a bigger way. In addition to partnering and planning and pivoting, Lori is definitely understanding the value of proving her impact. She knows from anecdotal stories and from other external evaluations that her work matters, that there is impact and value that's happening at her organization, but she's not okay with that. She actually wants to prove it to a greater level. She wants her model, her collaborative model, to become an evidence-based practice. So she has engaged us to help her document that evidence-based and show, above all other models, that her model is definitely the most effective at achieving outcomes for children with mental health. And lastly, Lori is great at persisting. So Lori and I actually met in a professional development setting, a professional development workshop. We were both in because we were looking to hone and improve our leadership skills and implement best practices into our organization, into the sector. And through that relationship, that's how we became, have a more of a working relationship as we do now. But Lori is constantly seeking new strategies and new skills to implement. She's definitely persisting for her vision and figures out how to deal with obstacles and pivot and move towards those. And as a result, she's been rewarded for that. So I met Lori about 3 years ago, and since that time, she's been able to double the revenues that her organization has to achieve the mission. But what I love so much about Lori's story is that for her, it's not about just doubling her revenues. She knows that those revenues allow her to increase access and increase outcomes for those that she wants to serve. And so that's an example of Lori. And if you want to become Lori or inspired by Lori and you would like to create that kind of success for your organization, what if you could double the revenues that your organization has to do its work in just 3 short years? I'd like to do that. I hope you would like to do that too. I'm going to share with you 10 questions. These are the frequently asked questions that I get from the people in my training or the clients, and they go to start implementing these 6 strategies, and they'll come up with a barrier, a block. And so I don't want you to have to experience that. I want to give you the answers now before you even start to do it. So the first question that I want to talk about and that I get a lot is someone, listens to my training, they listen to the importance of these 6 skills, and they'll say, I'll admit it, I've been going through the motions for too long. What is the first thing you would do to get started? So if you found yourself kind of going through the motions and not really having a well-crafted plan to take your organization to the next level, the good news is that high-achieving social sector leaders understand the importance of pivoting. So here's your example to put those skills into place, realizing, okay, so the old model was that we were just going through the motions, just hoping that things would improve. And the new model is that, guess what? We need a plan. We need to get there. And so there might be people on your team that are happy with going through the motions because you haven't asked them to do more. So getting into the game of high achieving will require new consistent behaviors. So here's what I would recommend you do for the very first step. I call it the 5 Whys exercise. If you've been through one of my workshops or if you read Impact and Excellence, you're very familiar with this concept. So what I would do is gather my team around and say, all right, let's get really clear on our purpose, because that will help you pioneer this new vision. And so I would say, why do we do what we do? And help my team kind of get on board with this very new place. Who are we serving? What impact are we trying to have in the world? Where are we trying to go? And I think that very little first step, asking people why, will re-energize people, bring everyone together with the same purpose and same mission that will then help you implement some other things when you start to roll out some new plans or some new strategies. It'll help you go there and take the organization to the next level. So that's the first thing I would do. So the second question that I often get during my workshops and trainings is something along the lines of, we have to measure certain things and do things dictated by our funders, but many of these things are not really moving us forward towards our big vision and mission. What would you do? This is a common problem because for, maybe organizations have been built on funder mandates, or this is what the funder wanted, or this is what the grant wanted, so they have shifted and moved in different directions. And so they may find that their current activities or their current measures that they have to report to funders aren't really aligned with their big vision and their big mission. So this might be a reality. However, you don't want to let that stop you from getting to where you want to be. So as you develop your new plan, and your new quest for high performance, what you need to do is take those things into consideration, but develop your own plan where you're measuring your own strategic direction and your own outcomes that are going to help you move forward and get there where you want to go. Another thing that I would advise you to do if you have a relationship with that funder is to go to that funder and say to them, hey, this is our mission, this is where we want to go, and this is the best way we think that we can measure it. Sometimes funders didn't really know what to ask. They just knew, we've got to ask them to measure something, and maybe you have a better idea. And by suggesting that, you can improve the grant process for everyone involved, just not your organization. So don't be afraid to have those conversations with your funder. If that's not the case and you don't have that option, then as you move forward and create your plan, you might want to reevaluate that particular funding source. And is that the right thing for your organization? And look for other funders that are more aligned, and you can do the activities that are more aligned with where you want to go. So the third question I often get is, there have been so many changes in my world. I know I need to pivot and make some significant changes. What is the most effective process? The most valuable skill that I can teach you when you need to pivot is called Gleichner's formula. And this I use all the time. It is my favorite formula. It is the change formula. And so every social sector high achieving leader needs to remember these three elements of change. And that is that, when we've talked about this before, but there will be resistance to change. It doesn't matter, resistance happens, and any change management process has to be able to remove that resistance. And so there are three ways, and all three must be present to remove that resistance. So the first thing is there must be a dissatisfaction with the current state. So you have to give whoever it is you need to change and see your way or implement change in your organization, is you have to create this dissatisfaction with the current state. Sometimes people take a really negative and fearful approach. That's not really how I think we should do it. I like to take a data-driven approach. I like to show people the data and the facts and show them that they're not aligned with where we want to go. But that's the first thing. There needs to be a dissatisfaction with the current state. The second thing is there must be a vision for what is possible for the future. So that's why your pioneering skills are going to be so important. So you have to craft that vision of where you can go. Without people really seeing where they can go, they're not going to get on board for the change. So use your pioneering skills, craft that vision, use that 5 whys exercise that we talked about to get people on board and getting moving into that direction. And then the third thing that you need for any change management is concrete first steps. People need to know what they can do next to overcome that resistance. And so without the dissatisfaction with the current state, the vision for what is possible in the future, and concrete first steps. You don't need the whole plan laid out. You just need what they can do next. Resistance will always win. So anytime you need to make a change, ask yourself, have I created dissatisfaction? Is there dissatisfaction? Do my team or whoever I need to move know the vision, and do they know exactly what the first step we can do to be successful? Now the fourth question that I get a lot and I want to share with you is, we haven't done a strategic plan in years. What is your best practice for starting? So if you haven't done a strategic plan in years, likely your team is going to be reluctant in getting started in a strategic plan. They're going to think to themselves, well, here we go, a new management fad or new something that's not really going to lead us into the direction. But you're stepping into a different game. You're stepping into the high achieving social sector leader. And they don't know that. They might not know that you've gone through this training or that you're thinking about how to take your organization to the next level. So this is what I would do to help them all get on board and get into that visioning for you. So the first thing that I would have you do is gather your team. Again, we've got to engage our team in these processes, is gather them and help them craft the future state. And here is a great question to get everyone answering. It's fun and people love to do it. So the question is that you have been invited to a national conference. And 3 years from now, you have been invited to a national conference. And your job, or what they want you to speak on, is what have you done to achieve this incredible success that you've achieved? Maybe you've been like my friend Lori, who was able to double the revenues that her organization has to do their big mission, or you've created a new program or model and it's completely revolutionized your field. Whatever it is for you, do, think about that thing and have your team think about that. And then envision that you're up there on the podium and you're talking about everything you did and what it looks like now. And so have the question, what does that look like? What results are your clients getting? What does your organization look like? What's occurred to achieve that success? So really get them to cast that future vision so they get excited about it. And that helps create that really strong vision for the future. And then the next thing that I would do is then define your current state. Say, okay, well, where are we today? What is going on? What is our, what do our clients look like? What do our outcomes look like? What do our systems and processes look like? Because that will likely create a gap, right? You'll have your future vision and you'll see where you are today. And that gap in and of itself will create the dissatisfaction for that current state. And then before you actually start to implement a strategic plan, I would look at that gap and say, okay, what are the facilitators and the barriers that are going to help us get to that next level? So what are the things that are keeping us from getting there? And what are the facilitators, the things that are going to help us get there? And then in your strategic plan, you're going to focus on maximizing those facilitators, maximizing those things that are going to help you get there, and minimizing the barriers and reducing those barriers. And those are the concrete first steps for you and your team to implement. So I hope that with the Gleichner's formula and then those 3 steps to a successful strategic plan, I hope that will help you move forward. All right, so the 5th question that I often get is, what do we do if our results are not good? The data that we share is not good. I'm afraid we will lose funding. So this is definitely a resistance point. I often hear people when they talk about measuring outcomes or proving outcomes, that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid that the results won't be what they want. And I'm like, well, good. I mean, actually, I would love it if the results weren't what we wanted at first, because then we can stop doing something wrong and we can tweak it and move it. But in terms of the fear of the funders or losing funding, as a former government funder and with all the clients that I've seen and I've worked with, I have never seen a funder defund a program who is taking a data-driven approach to their success. Because what you'll be able to do if you find out your program is not working and you're taking this data-driven approach is you're able to say, hey, we thought that these would be the outcomes. This isn't what we found. But we also learned that if we make this pivot, if we make this change, that we're going to get better results. And so this is how we plan to move forward in the next year. Funders love that. They welcome that, and they will be more than happy to partner with you in the future. So just remember that when you take a data-driven approach, and what we learned in Impact and Excellence is that you're actually going to be in the top 25% of government and nonprofit organizations. So embrace that excellence and go for it. All right, the 6th question that I often get is, I'm trying to move my organization towards a high-performance measurement culture, but I have like 1 or 2 team members who are creating a problem. What would you do? First thing I would do is I would say, hey, did you use the Gleichner's formula with them? Did you help overcome that resistance? Did you craft a vision for what is possible in the future and also create some sort of dissatisfaction and then give them the concrete first steps? If you've gone through that process and you've been working with your team to get on board and they're just not getting on board, they're just creating obstacle and barrier after barrier, then it may be time for you to help them find a different opportunity. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality. Not everybody is cut out to be part of your organization and move your organization forward. And as a high-achieving social sector leader, you cannot settle for mediocrity. You have to figure out a way to get them out of your organization if they're not willing to get on board. And I know some of you watching this are saying, but we're a government organization and it's really hard to get people out. And that's true for so many organizations. But what you can do is you just have to do what every HR best practice would tell you, and that's start to document. We set these performance outcomes. They didn't get them. It might take you a lot longer, but you've got to take the first step, because that resistance will not help you get to the next level. And plus, it brings your other high-achieving social sector leaders that you work with down as well. So I know it's harsh. It's difficult to do, but you've got to do the work if you want to take your organization to the next level. All right, so the 7th question I often get is, you keep talking about data, but I've heard so many fundraising experts talk about the importance of stories. What do you have to say about this? I would say you're absolutely right. Stories are so important, but so are data. It's not an either or, it is a both. You need both information to make a compelling case and move things forward. So the stories appeal to that emotional side of people, but the data proves that it's happening over and over again. So when I'm in a fundraising pitch, or someone's calling me on the phone or sending literature and they give me a story, or they give me a great testimonial, yes, my emotions, you're talking to my emotions and I get excited, but then the thing I want to know next, the thing that would make me then give to that organization, if then they can prove to me that, guess what, this is an example of Johnny, and we have hundreds of Johnnies just like this. Look at our outcomes. So I think the most powerful case is to have your stories and have your data. And if you're interested in more about how you do that, I lay it all out, the whole framework out in Impact and Excellence. So that's a good resource to help you figure out how to marry the both of those. All right, so the 8th question I often get is, I'd like to invest in training, professional development, or upgrade to data systems to track outcomes, but everybody's always asking me questions about my administrative overhead, and investing in those things would actually increase my overhead costs. What would you recommend? Unfortunately, this is the reality right now. People have been kind of trained to think that administrative overhead is this key end-all, be-all measure of nonprofit success, which in my opinion is a really bad measure. And I'm sure you know as well as I do that it's a bad measure, because it has nothing to do with what is the impact you're having and how are you changing lives and changing circumstances. So what I've been recommending to everyone is to start focusing on something that I call the cost per success. So that is, how much does it cost for your organization to achieve a successful outcome? And in order to get there, you need 3 specific things. First, you need a well-defined success measure. So for your organization, what does success look like? It may be reduction in recidivism. It may be access to health care. It may be improved health outcomes. Every nonprofit is going to be a little bit differently. But clearly define that success measure, and then of course measure it. Know how many people you serve achieve that particular success outcome. Then you take all of your costs to deliver that program, include the overhead, include everything it is, and then you divide that number not by the number of people you served, but the number of people you served successfully. And why that's so important, or why that's so powerful, is because then you are able to increase your success rate, and if you increase your success rate, you're decreasing your cost of success, so you're actually looking more efficient. You can also then reduce costs at the same success level and look more efficient. So that gives you a lot more flexibility on how you spend your money, and it's really training the funder or the donor to think about success as the outcome and not administrative overhead. If you want to know about the formulas or different case studies of different organizations who've done that, I have them all listed in Impact and Excellence, so you can read that and figure out how you can do that for your organization. Okay, so the 9th question I want to share with you is kind of a fun one, and that's near and dear to my heart, and that is, what books or other resources do you recommend? I love this question because it means that someone is constantly learning and constantly growing, and that's really a value of a high-achieving social sector leader, right, is that ability to persist, so that's the ability to learn new things. So of course I'm going to recommend Impact and Excellence, but some other books that have really shifted my thinking and helped me really understand how all of this works in the social sector is, first, it's Mario Moreno's book of Leap of Reason. That one is a really great book, and it's essentially free. So go to leapofreason.com and you can pick up that particular book. And also he has this performance imperative framework on his website now that I think is also helpful if you're looking to move towards a high performance organization. Another one that I really recommend, especially for my government leaders, is We Don't Make Widgets by Ken Miller. Actually, I read that book probably, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it really clicked. Something in me clicked about how to measure performance and how to measure outcomes in a government and a social sector environment. So definitely check out We Don't Make Widgets by Ken Miller. Also, if you're looking at how do you hone your message and use data and use stories and everything to really get your message across, I recommend Made to Stick by Dan and Chip Heath. That's a really great book to help you do that and take what you know to the next level. And then Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I think that's a really powerful book that talks about the importance of whys. It's how I frame that 5 whys exercise I talked about. So those are some of the resources that would help you get you started and get you going, and share with your team to help them think about how to create high performance measurement cultures and become high achieving social sector leaders. All right, so thanks for hanging in here. I've got my last question. And the 10th question isn't really a question. It's more of something that I get all the time that I really want to address. And that's along the lines of, we don't have any money, we don't have any resources, we just don't have, and how would you deal with that? So here's the answer to that question. The answer is you have to change your mindset. Maybe right now you don't have enough money, right now you don't have the resources. So it's not so much I don't have enough, and maybe you can't do something at this moment, but the question is, how can you do this in the future? What do you need to get it to you in the future? Because when you just kind of come from a place of I don't have enough, then that stops you, that limits you from your success. But high achieving social sector leaders are going to say, how can I do this? And so I've found so many creative solutions, and actually a benefit that we have as a social sector leader is that we can find grants, we can find board members, we can find in-kind donations. There are a lot of different ways we can typically find the resources we need to move forward and get things done. So those are my 10 questions that I get the most, and I wanted to share those with you because you're going to go out there to become a high-achieving social sector leader, and those situations are going to come up for you. And now I've given you the answers because I believe in your big vision. I want you to do it. The world needs you to do it. The world needs you to step up your game, to take your organization to the next level, to deliver bigger impact for those that you serve. But you will experience these challenges. You will experience these setbacks. And so remember that. Hopefully you've been taking notes. If you haven't been, go re-watch this video to take the notes you need. I'll keep the link up. You can always visit this link and to watch this video to find the answers. What did she say? Oh yeah, she said I was going to experience that challenge. What did she want me to do, or how am I supposed to move forward? But you just need to take this next step and become that high-achieving social sector leader. Thanks again for following along and being part of this video series. I hope you've seen the big vision for your organization and you've been excited and spurred to take that next step to move you forward. I've given you so many strategies and skills and tips to help you go to that next level. So make sure that you reference these notes and you move forward. I know that you can do it. The world needs you. They need your big vision, because if you're not going to do it, nobody else is, right? So you've got to take the next step. And to help you take that next step, in a couple of days, I'll be announcing a new program that we're going to offer, which is called the Social Sector Leaders Academy. There is nothing like this that I can find on the market, and I think you're going to love it. I'm going to go really deep into those 6 strategies of high-achieving social sector leaders and give you tools and tips and strategies to help you really take your organization to the next level. So look for more information about that in the future. All right, well, thanks again. Until next time, keep measuring and achieving excellence.